David C. Corten. All things, all beings, including stars, planets, humans, animals, plants, rocks, and rivers, are both expression and agent of the Spirit, each with its place and purpose in an epic journey. Earth and the material universe of human experience are more than the Spirit's creation, they are its manifestation. The Spirit is in the world, and the world is in the Spirit. The Spirit is both immanent and transcendent, a concept called panentheism. Panentheism. In his expression of the Jewish faith, Jesus taught, "The kingdom is within," and Muhammad taught, "Wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah."
I plan to spend some additional time, and we plan to spend some time with the congregation on environmental issues this year. Not through a look at coastal erosion, though that will count, or global warming, which will also count, or the preservation of species, which is also important. But to examine and find a way toward the next step, a required step, if humans hope to remain on our planet. This connects me to David C. Corten, who wrote, "The Spirit is in the world, and the world is in the Spirit." Notice that shift. This is an emphasis on the integral nature of spirit to life. The spirit of life is bigger than and also embedded within everything on our planet. You, me, animals, plants, molecules, quarks, atoms, all of it is inspirited. That means we are all on a spiritual journey. Our lives are filled with a growing expression of spirit within us. Some of us plunge right into that. It becomes a large part of what we do. For others, it washes over and people fail to pay it any attention. And we all participate in the decision of what we will do, which collectively results in participating in the decisions a community will be taking part in, as well as the direction that our world is flowing. We all participate. Spirit is often addressed in the church, just as it is in Corten's text. But as I look back at how spirit was lifted up in my younger years, I have found that my spirit was closely linked to my exploration of Native American ancestors. Ancestry. This month's packet on ancestry says there is a difference between relatives and ancestors. Relatives give us our brown eyes and bowed legs. Ancestors bless and burden us with a legacy. Relatives are those we tell stories about. Ancestors call us to carry the story forward. Our relatives allowed us to be here. Our ancestors tell us why we are here and why being here now matters. As for relatives, my 4 grandparents were Dutch. I guess that makes me Dutch too. But those large-framed, plain-spoken, and often short-tempered relatives had no part in the knowledge I had gained about my Indian ancestors. That journey began with cowboys and Indians. While my sisters and their friends were playing with dolls, the neighborhood boys played cowboys and Indians. As I recall, most of my friends wanted to be cowboys. They had seen TV shows where the actor said, "Watch out, Indians over there," or "They're getting ready to scalp you." They didn't want to be an Indian. Even the word Indian had a sinister connotation to it. Now, we didn't know it as children, but there was a history that led to these views. There had been a national policy of Indian removal. It began with the 1830 law to move Indians west of the Mississippi River. This led to range warfare, western skirmishes, events still fresh in our national memory during the 1950s. Nevertheless, despite all of that, I kind of liked the Indians. I already liked the Indian spirit that I had picked up. That's the thing about walking in a forest so softly that nobody would hear you. I tried that over and over again, and I couldn't do it, but I liked those who were able to do so.
I could teach you.
It appealed to me, but there was more to come for me, like the public library. I've said here that I found Eastern religion when I moved from Indians to Indians. What that means is that I had read the entire section on Native Americans before I moved to the subcontinent of India. We all grow up with the weight of history on us. Our ancestors dwell in the attics of our brains, as they do in the spiraling chains of knowledge hidden in every cell of our bodies, said Shirley Abbott. And I had immersed myself in the development of this weight of history and the habits and practices of tribe after tribe, from A to Z, the Apaches to the Zuni, and tribes in between. I learned about sweat lodges, religious pilgrimages, herbs and medicines, medicine men, and the Great Spirit. This led to a question I brought to the Sunday school. Isn't the Great Spirit just like God? My teacher said no, but could not explain why the Great Spirit was not just like God. I was told I could figure that out when I got older. I also discovered in my reading that the natives were more peace-loving than I had been told. They responded to Europeans much like we would respond if someone decided to take our land. Not very favorably. But there was more to come, like the television. Many Americans had grown to appreciate Tonto, the Lone Ranger's partner. He was a man of few words. As I recall, he said, "Yes, Kimosabe," a phrase that means faithful friend. That was an interesting puzzler because Kimosabe was something that I wondered about, and faithful seems to me to relate pretty closely to faith, does it not? This told me that faith can and should be found in our life. In our life. Not just something that was talked about in our houses of worship. As I saw it, a faithful inner spirit guided and led this man, Tonto. Another Native American on TV was Pahu Katawa. Pahu was a silent Indian. He was on the Yancey Derringer Show, which ran for just one season from 1958 to 1959. Does anyone remember Yancey Derringer? There's a few of us who remember Yancey Derringer. Where was it set, good friends? Mississippi River, and primarily here in New Orleans. Yancey was a rebel gambler, and a roustabout who worked both sides of the law after the end of the Civil War. In an aside here, one of Yancey's paramours was Frances Bergen, who was the mother of Candace Bergen. Another was Margaret Field, who was the mother of Sally Field. And I found that very interesting. So, when Yancey was questioned about Pahu's reliability, he said he was forced to leave the Pawnee because he stuck up for me. And that makes him a friend for life. I saw a deep spirit in Pahu. He was filled with commitment, loyalty, and compassion. But there was more to come, like Black Hawk. There is a Black Hawk State Park in Iowa and a Black Hawk historical site in Illinois. Black Hawk was a Sauk chief. It was the final resistor against the push to move all of the Native Americans west of the Mississippi. Several times he left Iowa, crossed the Mississippi into Illinois, but he was pushed back and peacefully encouraged to go back to Iowa, and he did. But on the final time, he brought 2,000 people with him, 500 warriors, the rest were women, children, and elderly. When the U.S. soldiers realized he was again in Illinois, they chased him up the Rock River to Wisconsin. The tribes settled in the Kettle Moraine, which is a beautiful forested area I know well. It's worth visiting. The soldiers flushed them out and chased them all the way across southern Wisconsin to the Mississippi River. Caught between the troops and the Mississippi, men, women, and children were killed. Harry A. Armstrong, a 19th century author, labeled Commander Throckmorton, who led the troops, inhuman and dastardly. A second Nero or Caligula. A recent author said, delusional beliefs about brave deeds and magnifying manliness spurred the U.S. forces to revel in and pursue massacring and exterminating the Sauk and Fox tribes. And me, I could only feel sadness and remorse for those early residents of our land. But there was more to come, like Winona LaDuke. I had an opportunity to hear Ms. LaDuke at the University of Iowa in 1994. She had been Ralph Nader's vice presidential candidate in 2 Green Party presidential runs. Why? Because she lifted up the need to save our land. In that address, she said that 90% of her tribe's lands had been lost, but there was one clan among the 10% that were still farming, using the same 40 acres they had been on for 1,000 years. 1,000 years, several thousand people in this clan had learned how to harvest, support, and live with the land. I'm interested in what kind of economy we're going to have in another 1,000 years, she said. We could be working on that now, but not if we're polluting our water and our land in ways that will require remediation for decades to come. I realized that day that Native Americans had a spirit that led them to be good caretakers. They were looking at the entire picture of things. They didn't sequester some of it off and say it will make no difference. It seemed to me that they provided better care for the earth than I saw put into practice by most of the Midwestern farmers, and I knew many of those Midwestern farmers. But the best was still to come. I learned something completely new at the Maquoketa Caves. Maquoketa is definitely an Indian name. And the caves are located in a deep valley with a river flowing between two cliffs. I joined several college students on a trip to the Maquoketa Caves in 1995. I followed our leader when we arrived, someone who had been there before, up a long ledge cut into the side of the cliff to a cave that was high up on the cliff wall. We spent an afternoon deep within that cave. Now there were religion students, there were anthropology students, there were historians, there were English and psychology people, all involved in this outing to the Maquoketa Caves. And they all sat when we were done and rested near the entrance, just talking about the experience, about the history, about where we were. Some talked about the Indians who had once used this area as a retreat. A few people left, then a few more, and I was the last one that was left in the cave. It was about dusk when I left it and began to walk back down the trail. I stopped for a few moments at a place where the path widened, and it was about like this here, 12, 15 feet, 6, 8 foot out, enough for 10 to 12 people to sit together. And the entire valley could be seen from that spot, all of it. I sensed that Indian scouts might have watched out for the tribe's safety there. Right there. Have you ever heard the phrase, the voice of the ancestors began to speak to me? I've often read that in books on Native Americans. I hear Michelle Jensen lifting this connection when she wrote, "The very air surrounding us and moving the flames, the air our ancestors were breathing. There is no other." But for some reason, as I stood on that ledge high up the cliff, the voice of our ancestors rose up within me. From out of ether, I heard their views of life, of love, of caring for our earth. Their voices gripped me. There was a power there, an awesome power, so powerful that for a time I was afraid. If they chose to throw me off the cliff, I sensed they had the ability to do so. And I had not taken any substance-altering substances when this happened. I had just climbed out of a cave with people. I relaxed. I settled in. And I listened to them. And as they reached the end, I said, "Why me? Why are you talking to me? I am not a native. I'm just a white guy. Why me?" What they said in reply was, never forget that you were here. Which to me means never forget what they had told me. Never forget what my ancestors had to say to me. That was over 20 years ago. And I realize then, as I do now, that they are my ancestors. Their voices amplify my concern for our earth. Again, today the court, to achieve our individual and species potential, to secure our common future, we must align with the wisdom and intention of the Spirit that manifests through us. That is what is happening. Their Spirit was manifested through me, and I carry that with me. I suspect, well, I am not the only one whose ancestors hold no relationship to their relatives. And this leads to several questions as we consider ancestry this month. Who are your ancestors? Who have been your guides for life? You will find in your order of service exercises and questions that relate to your ancestry. Please take a look at them this month, but ask that more firmly than what I usually do. Please take a look at those questions, and when you do, listen for the voice of your ancestors, and then allow what they have shared with you to serve you and serve you well. May the love within your spirit find the love in the spirits of those around you. Namaste.